Financial freedom. What does it mean? Financial freedom means having enough passive income coming in consistently every month to not just pay your bills, but also to be saving for things, to be providing a great lifestyle, to provide memory making experiences for the people you care about, to have enough money coming in that you can give some away to the organizations you care about, and to set up a legacy, to set up generational wealth. To me, that's what financial freedom means. And the path that I've chosen to achieve it is rental properties. I'm Heidi Fore. I'm a MAPS coach, and I absolutely love investing in rental properties. I think it is the best way to achieve financial independence, and not just that, but actual financial freedom. To me, financial independence is being financially independent from having to have a job. And financial freedom is that plus more, not just covering your bills, but really having the freedom to live where you want to, work when you want to, and not be dependent on a job, not be dependent on anyone except for your passive income sources. So what we'll talk about today is getting started on that journey and stretching the cash that you have so that you get to that financial freedom day faster. And I'm going to share my screen with you right now. This meeting is being recorded, so if you check our MAPS Fast Track YouTube page tomorrow, you'll find a recording of this, and you can go back and listen to it again. I'm Heidi Fore, and I've been a MAPS coach since 2015. I've been a realtor since 2002. So I've got 20 years of experience as a realtor, and I have about 5 years of experience as a real estate investor. In 2018, I got serious about replacing my job income with rental property income. At the time, I was thinking about homeschooling my kids, and I was trying to figure out how could I work less hours in my job, but still have the lifestyle that we want. So how would I do that? And I got into a groove of approximately one rental unit a month every month for 5 years, 61 rental units in 61 months. And there's mostly single family homes and duplexes, a couple triplexes, a couple fourplexes. It was a low inventory market, as you know, as the last 5 years have been. Was it easy to find rental properties? No, but if you watched my webinar last week, you'll know how I did it. If you haven't seen that yet, you can find that on our YouTube channel as well. I have a process that I follow for finding the homes to buy, and what you'll hear today is the process that I follow for finding the money to buy them. Before you take any action on anything I say in this class, please talk to an attorney first and follow any laws for your state. Talk to your accountant to make sure you're getting all of the great tax deductions that rental properties provide. Talk to your financial planner to make sure this is the best way towards financial freedom and retirement for you. Talk to your realtor if you're not a realtor or if you're not buying rental properties in the state where you're licensed. And please, please, please understand and follow the do not call and spam laws and comply with TCPA regulations. Also, today we'll be talking about buying homes subject to another mortgage. So please read the mortgage terms regarding the due on sale clauses and prepayment penalties, and decide if you'll need to get permission from the banks if you go that route. There are actually 20 different ways that I've seen investors use to pay for rental properties using very little cash. Here are 8 of them. So stretch your cash when it comes to buying investment properties is a great way to get the most amount of properties in the least amount of time. All of the methods that I'm going to talk about today have pros and cons to them, and they won't work in every situation. They're just tools that you can use as needed when it's time for you to solve a problem, because that's what investing in real estate is. You're solving your problem of how do I replace my job income with rental property income? Or maybe you want to keep your job. Maybe you love your job and you want to do this until you're 107. Cool. Then investing in rental properties can just be side income for you. It can just provide generational wealth for you, but you don't have to quit. You can keep working your job that you're in till you're 100. But if you ever chose to retire, you would have the confidence, the security, knowing that you can. And these are some of the tools that you can use to get them. Some of the tools that I'll talk about today, as I said, they don't work in every situation. And just because you can do a certain tool doesn't mean you should. Everything we'll talk about today needs to be applied to your situation. So number one, the first way I'll talk about as far as using a small amount of cash is buying primary residence for yourself to live in, and doing that and moving every 3 or 4 years. Because you can buy a house, a condo, a duplex, a triplex. You can buy a fourplex as a primary residence and move into it, fix it up. You can buy, these homes with as little as 3% down, 3.5% down, or even, like if you want to pay 5% down, but that is a very small amount of cash. And you can ask sellers to pay for your closing costs so that you can save your cash for doing repairs. You can buy houses that need improving and fix it up while you live there. I think it's a good idea to look for a house that you can buy for like 70% of the improved value, so that later you can use a home equity line of credit on that equity and be able to pull that out and use it as a down payment on another property later. You could just rent out a room. You can rent out a basement if it's got, like a walkout basement, following your local laws, or you can rent out your whole house when you're not there as a short-term rental. And you can repeat this process every, like I said, on average, every 3 years, and you keep your old home as a rental. That's what we've done. And it really was a great way for us to accumulate a lot of rentals over the last 5 years by move in, fix it up, make it look perfect, and move out and find someone to rent it, and using that small down payment and that wonderful 30-year lower interest rate as a primary residence. And so that's my number one way. Over 15 years, you could have 5 to 7 rental properties from doing it that way. Number two is using that home equity line of credit that I just talked about. So when you find a house that you can move into and you buy it under market value, you fix it up and use that home equity line of credit. It's usually a variable interest rate. But what's cool about it is after you've paid your balance down to zero, you can reuse it like a credit card. And you can use that home equity line of credit to buy a rental property, either as a down payment for another rental property, or as you could just use that cash from your home equity line of credit. It comes into cash, is like you use it just like cash to buy a rental property with it. And then you can go and use the equity of that property that you buy. Number three is fixed rate home equity loans. These are similar to the home equity line of credits that I just spoke about, but it's a fixed rate for like 10 to 30 years. It's not variable, so you don't have that worry that the rate's going to go up and down. But once that balance on it is paid down to zero, you cannot reuse it. That's the big difference between the two. Number four is find an equity partner. An equity partner is someone that has money, but they don't have time, and maybe they don't even have knowledge of what needs to be done. So if you have time and the knowledge of what needs to be done and the skills to do it, then you find and manage all of the repairs of the rental property, and you find the tenants, and you and your partner own the piece of the property together. So they bring in the money and you bring in the expertise and the time. And that you could either own the house together, or what you could do is put both of your names as owners on an LLC, and then the LLC owns the rental property. So you could own it as tenants in common, and you could split the rent 50-50, or you could own it as an LLC. The LLC gets paid from the tenants, and then you split the profits 50-50 or 60-40 or whatever you decide with your partner. And someday you can refinance the property in your name only if your other partner doesn't want to be an owner in it anymore. And you could pay back your equity partner. And if you both decide to sell it one day, you could split those proceeds too. Number five is debt partner, also known as private lending. This is where you ask someone to borrow money to buy the property, and you offer to pay them back in fixed payments over an agreed period. So this would be something that's not a bank. It's not something that they do all the time. It's probably just someone that you know. And this can really be a great win for them if they're not getting much interest on their cash that's sitting in a bank. And it's a win for you because you don't have to come up with any of the down payment. Because you could, there are no rules here with private lending. You could just borrow 100% of what's needed. This is you just negotiating terms with someone that you know. They don't own the house, you own the house, and you can refinance it with a traditional mortgage later. If you're in a spot right now where getting a traditional mortgage isn't an option for you, or you don't have the 20 to 25% or 30% down payment, this can be a great route to go. It also could be that you end up in the future having 10 traditional fixed 30-year mortgages already in your personal name, and banks won't lend you anymore, because banks get to a point where they won't lend you any more of that type of loan. So the other thing that you can do with this is buy something that needs work, borrow the money to buy it and do the work, and then when you do the cash out refinance, you pay the person off that lent you the money, and then the house is completely in your name and you haven't used any of your own cash to get into it. You also can borrow money from other people's self-directed IRAs. Many people don't know that, and there's some rules around it, but that's something that you could research. Another type of debt partner that people use is a hard money lender. This is a company that works mostly with flippers and has they have like set loan terms. They have like products. Many times hard money lenders will go to investor meetups, investor association events. They'll have a table set up on the side or in the back of the room, and they'll hand out flyers about their loan products. And usually their rates are higher than going to a bank. And usually you have to pay them back within a year or two. But the great thing about this is sometimes you have 100% financing that's possible. And sometimes like this, they can give you the money really quickly, like within 7 to 10 days. It's really fast. So you will want to refinance it within a year or two because the interest rates are much higher. So you want to make sure that what you're buying is something that you can easily refinance later or easily sell. That's hard money lending. So number 7, this very interesting one is it's called a master lease option with the right to sublet. You could, in the right scenario, ask a landlord or home seller if they would rent a house to you and allow you to sublet it, either as a short-term rental or as a traditional rental agreement. And this is known as Airbnb rental arbitrage. And you could, like, again, if all the laws allow, you could keep the difference between the rents and take over maintenance and management of the unit. So that you could also have an agreement to purchase it at the end of the lease for a predetermined price. So that's with an option to purchase. This gives you time to find a partner to help you purchase it at the end of the lease. It gives you the experience of leasing out this property. And this could be a way for you to get into a property and get the experience of managing it with very little of your own money in it. Number 8 is seller financing. This method is easiest if there is not an existing mortgage on it. If a seller has an existing mortgage on it, then your agreement is called a wrap mortgage. It's also known as a subject to purchase. And there's a lot of rules and things to consider, pros and cons of this method. In this method, the seller's current mortgage gets paid plus a little extra to the seller every month. The win to the seller for the seller is that they're still getting they're getting their mortgage paid every month, and they're getting a little bit extra, so they're getting some income coming in. You are renting the house to a tenant and keeping the difference. And it's good when a seller doesn't want to spend time on that property anymore, and they like the idea of still receiving monthly payments on it. It just has to be a win-win for everyone. So like what I like to do in any situation is when I find a property that a seller is willing to sell, I go through all of these different tools that can be used to see which one makes the most sense for everybody in this situation. Of all of these different tools for financing, of ways of purchasing, which one makes the most sense? Which one is a win-win? And what problem are we trying to solve for the seller? And the problem, what are the problems that I'm trying to solve? So what's key in each of these scenarios, in each of these methods, it is knowing your numbers and having a set criteria of what you will and won't accept. So there's the things to keep in mind are, of course, like what is the purchase price and how will the purchase price be paid over what period of time? How much of your money is involved and how much of other people's money is involved, and what happens if something goes wrong? What are our contingency plans? And when you have a checklist for purchasing and a checklist of things to put in an offer, those are some things that need to be on your checklist. Have I looked at this? Have I looked at that? Have I considered this? to make sure that you are writing a solid offer with the best form of financing for you for this situation, and that the seller is going to be happy with the terms and the purchase price as well. I'm going to throw in a bonus number 9 here. I know I told you I was going to share with you 8 ways today. Here's, I'm going to throw a number 9. So after you've used one of the those 8 ways to purchase a house, you might end up with a good amount of equity in it. And instead of selling it and doing a 1031 exchange, which is an option, you could consider doing a cash out refinance loan. This has been one of my favorite ways to pay for properties, and it's how I accumulated so many properties so quickly. When you are able to buy a house that's either has a ton of equity or preferably one that you've been able to pay all cash for, you rehab it. Some people call it repair, some people call it remodel, some people call it renovate. But this is the second R in the BRRRR method, is the rehab, doing the work. And there's a lot of different levels of this. Sometimes I've come across properties that just needed paint and carpet and some light fixtures and a little bit of landscaping. And sometimes it's been like serious, like structural work. And so all of when I'm looking at purchasing a house, I think about this. How much money will I put in? What will it be worth after I put in that money? And will I be able to do a cash out refinance and get all of my money back? And that process is done by just looking at what are houses selling for that are in its current condition, that are pre-repairs, and what are houses selling for after they're repaired. And looking at those, then I find a bank that would be willing to do a cash out refinance loan based on the appraised value after repairs. That's my favorite way to do it. So there are banks that will go ahead and do a loan to lend you the money for repairs, and then a second loan after it's repaired. But my favorite way to do it is to go ahead and use my cash or my resources to repair it, rent it out to tenants. So I have it rented. I have a 12-month lease in place, and it looks beautiful. And then I call a bank, and I call several banks, and I say, what products do you have for investors that want to do a cash out refinance loan? That's the question that I ask. And I listen to what options they have, and I find a bank that has the best terms. Usually what I found is that local banks, they'll do a fixed rate for the first 5 years, and then it adjusts after that, and they want it totally paid off within 20 years. And so we need to make sure that it's still going to have cash flow. It's still going to be positive cash flow after you're making that payment, that new payment. And what happens then so you've made an agreement with the bank, and the bank has said, yeah, let's do it. I'll do a loan for you based on the appraised value after the repairs. So you schedule a closing, and at the closing, you sign a paper saying you're going to pay this loan off over the next 20 years or refinance it with someone else during that time. And the bank then gives you a check for, it could be 75% of the appraised value, could be 80%, could be 85%. Depends on the bank and depends on the type. Some banks will only lend like 70% of the appraised value if it's a duplex or triplex or fourplex. Some banks don't care. They'll lend 85% of an appraised value on a fiveplex. So that's why you've got to make your phone calls and have conversations every day with lenders and with investors, and asking the investors, like, what banks do you like to work with? And I really like going to meetups of other investors, or other investors get together for networking events, and just asking questions like, what banker do you like working with? What products have you seen that are great for investors? And any other questions on my mind about owning rental properties. I find that when investors go to these local groups of other investors, they're just so wonderful in sharing their information that they have of how they've been successful and who I should know that they know. So I highly recommend going to those. So once you've found the right bank, you've gone to the closing for the cash out refinance loan. So you're going to be sitting there at the table, you're going to get your check, you've signed all your paperwork, and let's pretend that was the after repair value was $100,000, and you got a check for $75,000. You then take that check for $75,000, and if And you can go use that as a down payment on another house. You can use it to renovate maybe another house that you got started. You can use it to pay down a home equity line of credit that you had run up to get the repairs done. So then you'd reuse that money. So when people talk about the BRRRR method, BRRRR, the B is for buy, the R is for rehab, the R is for rent, the R is for refinance, and the R is for repeat. So the first house pays for the second house pays for the third house pays for the fourth, etc. So if you're using this, if you think about it, if it takes you, if you're using this, you could buy 20 units in 5 years. Because if you really get on a, if you really get good systems down and you get on a plan to use those systems, it could take you 4 months to renovate a house and find tenants, which means if every 4 months you're doing that, you could buy 3 houses every year using this cash out refi method and 2 houses a year from one of those previously mentioned methods that I talked about today. And you could end up with 20 units in 5 years or more, like I did. Because I decided that I was going to spend, like, this was going to be my part-time job, and I was going to spend time every single day looking for houses and then finding ways to finance them to buy the houses. So this is, if you have a plan to be done in 5 years with whatever your job currently is, this can be your plan. So if you're saying, yeah, the BRRRR method sounds great, Heidi, but I have to get cash for the first closing, like the first domino is to get a house. Well, here are some ways where you get to buy that first house. Live on a budget, save 20% of each paycheck until there's enough cash for the first house. That's something you could do. You could get a second job, and the second job, all of the money for that second job funds a savings account called your financial freedom savings account. You could sell a car and be a 1-car household. You could sell a business if you are an owner of a business. You could sell stocks that are in your IRA and turn it into funds to be a self-directed IRA. If you haven't researched that, go Google self-directed IRAs. There's a lot of great websites out there that teach you how to use the money that's in your IRA, turn it into a self-directed IRA, and buy a house, buy a rental property with a self-directed IRA, or use your funds in your self-directed IRA to lend to someone else so that as a down payment on their house, and they pay you interest. So it may take a while, but once you have that one house that you can buy for 70% of the after repair value, you can recycle that money through that BRRRR method and buy more and more and more and more and more. And as I said earlier, there's like 20 ways to pay for rental properties in addition to those 9. For example, 1031 exchanges. We didn't even get into those today. A 1031 exchange is a way to keep trading rental properties up for bigger, better properties using the equity of each time like a house is more valuable and more valuable, and not pay capital gains on those taxes in between, or delay them till down the road till you sell it down the road. So where does this piece fit in the financial freedom journey? Here's the financial freedom journey that I found to be successful. The first step is you create your vision of what financial freedom looks like to you and how much that costs monthly or annually. So we all have a lifestyle cost, the cost of wherever we're going to live, the food we're going to eat, transportation for wherever we're going to live. And depending on where you want to live in the world, it's going to vary greatly. There are some countries where you can live on $1,500 a month, and some countries that cost like $15,000 a month. So you've got to figure out where you want to live in your financial freedom days and how much that's going to cost monthly. Then you'll know how many rental properties that you'll need to be able to fund that lifestyle. So you'll need to calculate your expected profit for a property, and then you'll easily be able to say yes or no to a potential purchase, because you'll know I need this many properties that each have this much in profit in order for me to fund my financial freedom life. So then after that, you're going to choose what type of real estate is best for you and how to pay for it. And then once you're clear on this is my criteria, this is the type of real estate I'm going to buy, then you're going to say, here's where I'm going to look to find it. I'm going to find rental properties that meet that criteria. Yes, someone just put in the chat, FSBOs for sale by owners are a great place to look. Yes. And then the next thing you'll do once you've bought the properties using one of these many ways is find great tenants. Find the tenants, handle their applications, sign the leases, make sure your leases are covering all of the things that could come up, and collect your rent payments. And when you get that system down of finding the tenants, getting them moved in, and you're collecting those rent payments, the next thing for you to do is get a system for maintaining the properties and tracking the performance of each property. This can be done on spreadsheets, or there's a lot of different apps and websites, software that you can buy to allow you to see your success with each property and as your portfolio as a whole. And then the step after that is hiring the right people to protect your properties and your cash through trusts, LLCs, having the right insurance and the right property managers so that you can go live wherever you want, do whatever you want, and not be managing rental properties as your job. You'll be able to just enjoy your financial freedom with whomever you want, whenever you want. So these are today was just a sample of the things that I talk about in my 8-hour course. My 8-hour course is called Fund Your Life with Rental Properties. It's not exactly a creative title. It is what it is. I teach you how to fund your life with rental properties. And we meet once a week for 8 weeks. And I give you suggestions of actions to take between our sessions from week to week. I'll say, okay, my suggestion is between now and next week, we're going to blank. There'll be a Facebook group for just the course attendees where you can meet each other and maybe even share some deals with each other. You'll get a workbook that's filled with 100 pages of content that you'll use to help you grow your empire, including all my checklists that I have for every single stage of rental property ownership. Those checklists are worth the cost of this course. And the cost of this course is only 2 payments of $199 each for 2 months. It's a truly amazing spreadsheet also that I'll go over with you to help you track the properties. And so nothing falls through the cracks. You'll get my whole system. You get my system of how I built my rental property portfolio and how I manage it. And you get to ask me questions about your potential deals that you might buy. You can watch this live every week with people that you work with, or with your spouse, or with your business partner, or you can just watch the recordings. You'll get all of the 8-week classes are recording, and you get the next 60 days to watch those. So you could have like Wealth Building Wednesday night at your house and could watch the recording together, and you would get to work towards your future together. I am going to open this up for questions now if you want to put your question in the chat. And if I don't get to your question today, since there were 433 people that signed up for this today, I may not get to everyone's question. So you can send me a message on HeidiFore.com. And if you know that you want to know more, go ahead and sign up for 8 hours with me on fundyourbiglife.com. Okay, I'm opening up for questions now. Okay, yes, it's gonna be on YouTube. Do you handle arbitrage properties that will let you, how do you handle arbitrage properties that will let you sublet? This is another pretty big topic. So send me that question on HeidiFore.com, and I will I'll get with you separately on it. What are the names of the systems? The names of the systems that I have, it's checklists, it's procedures. There's not a name to it other than Fund Your Life with Rental Properties. Does this course help with questions processes around purchasing investment properties out of state? Yes, it does. I give you the list of questions to ask, and I give you the list of things to look for when you're shopping in other states. Yep. When does the next class start? Next week. Glad you asked. It starts next week. It goes all the way through April and May, 4 weeks in April and 4 weeks in May. Where do DSCR loans come in? They either come in when you're buying the property and you want to get a loan based on the rent amount that's coming in, or you can get a DSCR loan during the cash out refinance process. So either one of those places. We are going to launch an investor club at our market center. Do you have any recommendations? Yeah, absolutely. Use what you learned from my class to discuss. And everybody can do the homework that I assign. It's not homework, suggested action items that I assign, and compare notes. Do you purchase investment properties in other states? Yes, in other countries. Does the course cover how to use BRRR out of a SD IRA? Again, send me a message about that. There's so many so many rules about self-directed IRAs. I have used my self-directed IRA to buy a rental property. So send me a message on HeidiFore.com, please, about that. You stated that you have to have tenants for 12 months prior to cash out refinance. Is that a minimum? No, you don't have to have tenants for 12 months prior. No, I think it looks good to banks if I give them, sometimes banks have asked me for a lease, a copy of the lease, or they'll ask me for a copy of the rent roll. They want to see a tenant ledger. They want to see if the tenants have been paying on time. So it helps if you have those things, but it's not a requirement for a cash out refinance. Nope. It's totally dependent bank by bank. And so that's why I suggest, I have a list of questions to ask banks that you get in this course. And so I suggest that you call like 8, 10, 12 different banks and ask them my questions, and you'll find a bank that has the right terms that you want. Someone says they can't make April. Go ahead and sign up for it though, but you can watch the recordings on your time. And we are at the end of our 30 minutes today. If I did not get to your questions today, go to HeidiFore.com, and I hope I see you next week in my 8-week workshop. Thanks, everyone. And best of luck to you on your journey towards financial freedom.
Thank you.